This is our second to last stop on the Underground Railroad. Today, some of the intense racial complexities of pre- and post-Civil War America will come into even sharper focus as Jack talks about Black folks serving in the Union Army. Jack?
Let's share. Are we sharing now? I think so. So it's not exactly Underground Railroad, it's more like boots on the ground action that we're going to focus on today. We researched the Underground Railroad in Ridgewood and could not find a record of a particular house involved. So our underground story will take us to Ridgewood. Along the way in the past, you've heard stories about self-emancipators, about Black and white allies, about churches and communities, abolitionists and others who took action to liberate themselves or other enslaved persons. The activists who went beyond advocacy and individual action decided that it was called on them to take up arms in the struggle for abolition. Today, we're going to learn a bit about the so-called U.S. colored troops. These were Black soldiers who were already free or who joined the Union Army directly out of bondage. They choose in this moment to fight slavery by making war. Telling the story of the Black soldiers is complex and difficult. First of all of the commissioned officers of the Black regiments were white. The experience of a Black soldier might have been a lot like changing one overseer for another, except that they were on the same side. The attitudes of the white officers spanned the gamut, found everywhere in America. Even the most ardent abolitionist would write about men suddenly transformed from slaves into soldiers and representing a race affectionate, enthusiastic, grotesque, and dramatic beyond all others. And other officers had deeper prejudices about the abilities of the men under their command. A second reality is that although they were promised the same pay as white soldiers, the Black troops were paid less. As we think about our narrative, remember these Black soldiers embodied the spirit of John Brown in taking up arms to fight slavery. Brown felt that words would never abolish slavery. He felt called by God to strike the death blow to the institution using violence to end it. A white friend of John Brown was Unitarian minister Thomas Wentworth Higginson. With another Unitarian, Theodore Parker, he helped fund John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry. Higginson was an officer over the 1st Black Regiment. Their successes opened the way for further Black enlistment. His book, Army Life in a Black Regiment, tells the story from a sympathetic white officer's perspective. For a Black perspective, we turn to Joseph Thomas Wilson. His Black Phalanx honors the fighting Black spirit in the American Revolution, the War of 1812, and the Civil War. Wilson was also one of its soldiers. He fought with the 54th Massachusetts, which was dramatized in the film Glory. His fellow Black veterans commissioned him to write the story of the military struggles for liberty and union by African Americans. I'll be putting links in the chat to both of their books. By May of 1863, according to Wilson, many officers without commands and some with, but who sought promotion, were eager to be allowed to organize a regiment, a battalion, or a brigade of Negro troops. Ambition, as ambition will, smothered many a white man's prejudice and caused more than one West Pointer to forget his political education. African Americans fought in every major campaign and battled during the last 2 years of the war, earning 25 medals of honor. Black regiments captured Charleston and Richmond. President Lincoln acknowledged without the military help of the Black freedmen, the war against the South could not have been won. Back home, just over a mile from Cottage Place, There are at least excuse me, 6 Black veterans of the Civil War who are buried there. Valleau Cemetery on Glen Avenue, just across from Old Paramus Reformed Church, is the final resting place of Tobias Sisko, Samuel Jackson, Tobias Jackson, John Sisko, Sergeant Nicholas Thompson, and Samuel Lewis, all of them part of the Black troops. I'm grateful to Joe Saplicki of the Ridgewood Historical Society for this information. Through Ancestry.com, I learned of John Sisko, a veteran of the 8th Regiment, and that he was buried at Valleau, but I had no idea where to find his tomb. Janice and I wandered through older parts of the cemetery and were about to give up. Then I saw a maintenance truck and spoke to the driver, who turned out to be Cemetery Superintendent Guy Kostka. He brought me into his office and found this card in his files. It shows 3 generations of the Siskos buried in the family plot. I've been able to document John Sisko's enlistment. This shows that he served 1 year, 6 months as a private. This is his disability filing 9 days before his death at age 45. John Sisko, here with a C, enlisted September 15th, 1863 at the age of 15 as a musician in Company H of the 8th Regiment. He was wounded in the knee and he came home deaf. He's listed as a hostler, that is, a stable hand. In Washington, D.C. today, the African American Civil War Museum has a registry of more than 2,000 descendants of Black soldiers in the fight for freedom. The story continues. In the military today, Black men and women are overrepresented, but racial diversity declines moving up the ranks. The upper echelons of the military are disproportionately white. This echoes the white officers over Black soldiers in the Civil War. In the Civil War, 20% of Black soldiers died, a rate about 1/3 higher than that of white Union troops. This parallels the impact of COVID-19 on people of color today. If you're Black, you are 4 times as likely as a white person to be hospitalized and 3 times as likely to die. And Black lives do matter. In the past 5 years, the rate of fatal police shootings per million population is 31 for Blacks and 13 for whites. We've almost finished our journey. Next week, we'll visit an Underground Railroad memorial in Patterson, and we'll point our story forward to how we can use these stories to make a difference in our world. Thank you so much for listening.
My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall. My Lord, what a morning. My Lord, what a morning. Oh, my Lord, what a morning. When the stars begin to fall, when the stars begin to fall. Don't quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Don't done quit all my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh, when the sun quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh, when the sun quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh, when the sun quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh, when the sun quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh, when the sun quit on my worldly ways, join that heavenly band. Oh,